I'm broke. I spent all my money on a quick Halloween shopping. I bought this substance from Gus, a customer of mine. He said that if taken, I see everything small. Let's try it. God, is this thing still a Genesis? Consoles, yup, those. What if they were cut in half? Mini consoles, there's no other like it. The thought that there's some classic games pre-installed in a small piece of plastic is awesome. But sometimes companies just do too much and then we end up with stuff like this. Mini consoles exploded in popularity around 2016 when Nintendo launched the Nes Classic Edition. This thing wasn't your ordinary plug-and-play console. This was made by Nintendo in-house with a variety of classic Nes games, featuring classics like Super Mario Bros. 1, 2 and 3, Mega Man 2, Metroid, and the other ones. Are we gonna trust someone with Tecmo Bowl in their games list? Hey, this system was awesome. Way smaller than its 85 counterpart, the controller is bigger than the console for Christ's sake. Japan got an even more cooler Famicom version with a red and gold controller. I always loved this color scheme, and the version of the console that can fit in the palm of my hand is just awesome. Nintendo also sold controllers separately, and in Japan they got a Player 2 controller separately. Lucky them. Not long after, 1 year later, Nintendo launched the Snes Classic Edition, packed with 20 original Super Nintendo games, and one bonus game that was never released before, Star Fox 2. This was amazing to get. 20 years later after it got cancelled, we got a legit sequel for the original Star Fox. And what about it? It was alright, I only played a bit and I saw it was okay. However, I won't be finishing it anytime soon, I don't want to get a tumor. The lineup of games is what you would expect from an SNES Mini. Super Mario World, Star Fox, Super Metroid, Donkey Kong Country, Earthbound, Mega Man X, Street Fighter 2 Turbo, the classics. But if you're not satisfied with this lineup, you can do what everyone does. Hack! Yeah, I hacked my Snes Classic to play some other classics that weren't included. Case in point, Shaq Fu. It was Shaq Fu, alright. I like that you can select different backgrounds and aspect ratios. I usually just select no background with the CRT filter. The game looks better that way in my opinion. Also the background distracts a bit. Now, let's talk about the console itself. Fellas, I'm gonna say it. Europe got better this time. I never liked the US design of the SNES, the grey and purple color scheme never fit. Japan and Europe got a similar design, but the Super Famicom design doesn't have a good logo on the front, so Europe wins. I gotta say, the SNES controller is one of the best controllers of all time, and this version is practically the same as the original. Overall, Nintendo had a good run with the classic editions. I can't wait for that N64 Mini. Yeah, 2018 me was so excited for this thing that never came out. It was a simpler time, the N64 was my favorite console of all time. Of course I wanted a miniature version of this. But Nintendo decided to announce that they were focusing more on Nintendo Switch Online and its classic games, instead of making another mini console. Part of me thinks that Nintendo released the NES Classic just to keep everyone talking about Nintendo, because 2016 was rough outside the reveal of the Switch. Fucking piece of shit. So Sega got the nerve to let a company called AtGames make a Genesis Mini. AtGames have been making these since Oblivion, but because of the NES and SNES Mini, they went overboard and made the worst possible consoles of all time, and flooded the market. Here we have possibly the worst looking Sega console. What is this supposed to be, a Genesis cartridge? There is also a more Genesis version, but 2018 me strikes back once again, and decides to buy this piece of garbage for the reasonable price of 80 euros. That's right, the same price as the SNES Classic. I think I broke a leg that day. Before we get to the games, let's talk about the controller. It's a replica of the 6-button controller, but with cheap plastic. Some versions of this console came with wireless controllers. This is ridiculous. The GameCube did better 15 years before, what was their deal? The UI is horrible, what is this supposed to be? If you want to get a headache, here you go. Okay, the games. Oh my god, the games. The game selection is fine, but the quality is absolutely disgusting and it screams bootleg loud and proud. The only good thing of these consoles is that you can plug any Genesis game, but it's practically useless when the audio and video quality is horrendous. They confidently say that it includes more than 80 games. More than half of the library aren't Sega games, it's just the most basic games in existence. Fortunately, in 2019, Sega released their own Genesis Mini and put the rest of the AtGames Genesis. After 2019, thankfully I never saw that thing again. I don't have the Genesis Mini, but according to everyone that played it, it's pretty good. However, it doesn't include Sonic 3 nor Sonic & Knuckles, and that's a lose in my book. And Sega did not stop there. In 2022 they announced the Sega Genesis 2 Mini. It's a miniature version of the second model of the Genesis, and it even includes Sega CD games. If Sega grows some balls in the next couple of years, they should totally do a Genesis 3 Mini, with the unlicensed Genesis 3 model with 32X games. The Genesis 3 is already small, imagine it in the size of an ant. Okay, so we got Nintendo and Sega, I wonder who will get the Atari license. Okay, at least they made an effort. AtGames got the Atari license to create the Atari Flashback consoles, they made 10 of them. But hey, with this one I appreciate it. It looks just like an Atari 2600 and the controllers aren't that bad. And the games, they're pretty simple, they're Atari games after all. And that's the thing, because they're so simple, there's no issue with the video and audio quality, it's already bad, they couldn't make it even worse. It includes your basic Atari games, Space Invaders, Centipede, Frogger, Asteroids, and all the rest. It doesn't include Activision games though, I don't see these ones around anymore, but AtGames, they just couldn't stop. The Legends Flashback console, now this is everywhere I go at this point. They just copy-pasted the Genesis design, removed the cartridge slot and call it a day. There's two versions, the basic and deluxe. The difference is that one includes more 50 games than the other. Just simulate the damn games, you don't need this. Now, let's talk about Sony. Sony made a mini console to compete with Nintendo, and somehow they failed. The PlayStation Classic. It's a miniature PS1. Now for this one, I was excited. Sony was finally putting the classics. Crash Bandicoot, Spyro the Dragon, Gran Turismo, it was finally all coming together. But man, October 29 needed to happen. All 20 games were revealed. This was terrible. Aside from Metal Gear Solid, Rayman, Final Fantasy VII, Tekken 3, Resident Evil and Twisted Metal, the rest was just filler or overall pretty boring. Don't get me wrong, Persona, Wild Arms and Rainbow Six, for example, are fine, but not what I associate with PlayStation 1. Come on. Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo? The lack of Crash, Spyro, Parappa the Rapper, Ape Escape, Medieval and Gran Turismo is evident. And that's where the mods come in. You can turn your PlayStation Classic from this to this. The PlayStation Classic failed miserably, and 1 month after launch I found it for 20 bucks. That's the worst deal I've ever seen, to be honest. Mini consoles kinda suck. If you're not Nintendo or Sega, just get out. But hey, with this we can get to the conclusion that size doesn't always matter. That's why I'm creating the Intellivision Big and Intellivision 4 times the size.